funny, isn't it? You sit through years of school. You memorize maps and formulas. You pass tests. You raise your hand. You follow the rules, and yet, no one ever tells you why your pockets always feel so light. No one tells you why you work hard, harder than most, and still can't breathe when the rent is due. They teach you the names of kings and rivers, but not the weight of quiet shame that settles in when the card declines. They teach you how to chase grades, but not how to stop chasing paychecks. You grow up thinking that education is the key. That if you just study hard enough, behave long enough, wait patiently enough, money will come. But money doesn't work that way. And poverty doesn't leave just because you learned algebra. You see, school was never designed to make you rich. It was designed to make you compliant, efficient, predictable, useful to someone else. That's the first truth they never taught you. They taught you how to earn, not how to own. How to follow, not how to think. How to stay in line, not how to step outside of it. And the moment you start to question it, the system, the setup, the silence, you're told to be grateful, told not to complain, told that money isn't everything. But let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a man in deep debt sleeping peacefully? Have you ever seen a mother unable to afford medicine and still smiling like nothing's wrong? Money isn't everything, no. But the lack of it? It changes everything. And the strange thing is, nobody teaches you how to make it, keep it, or multiply it. They teach you how to survive inside a world built by others, but not how to build one of your own. So you grow up, you get a job, you get a little money, and you feel like maybe now you've made it. But it's not long before the bills catch up, before your wants outrun your wage, before you realize that this treadmill you're on, it doesn't stop when you're tired. It stops when you're broken, and you look around, confused, thinking, I did everything they told me to do. Why am I still behind? Because they never told you the truth. They never told you that poverty isn't just about money. It's about patterns. It's about silence. It's about what was never said. You learn, without anyone having to say it out loud, that wanting more is greedy, that ambition is arrogance, that wealth is for those people, not people like you. You don't even realize the beliefs you're carrying. You just live them. You live the way your parents lived, the way your neighbors lived. You make the same choices. You think the same thoughts, and one day, you wake up and see the same fear in your children's eyes. That's how poverty moves, quietly, inherited like an accent, familiar like an old song you never meant to memorize. In school. School never gave you the tools to break that rhythm, because if you think about it, breaking it would mean questioning everything, would mean looking at the people who taught you, and realizing they might not have known either, would mean looking at the world you live in and seeing it's not fair, and never was. But here's something else no one ever told. You can learn again. You can unlearn too. You can wake up from it. The life you're living right now, it doesn't have to be the one you passed down. It doesn't have to end where it began. But first, you have to be willing to ask the questions no one taught you to ask. Not, how do I get rich? That's not the question. The real question is, what did they never teach me? Because it would have set me free. Think about that. Because somewhere buried underneath the routines, the bills, the busy work, is a quiet truth waiting for you. And once you see it, really see it, you can't unsee it. That's where change begins. Not in books, not in lectures, but in that still quiet moment where you finally say to yourself, something's not right, and I'm ready to see why. So you start to ask the question, maybe softly at first, in your mind, in your journal, in the tired silence of your drive home from work. You ask, what didn't they teach me? And slowly, the second truth begins to take shape. They never taught you that being poor isn't just a financial condition. It's a mental rhythm. A loop you don't even know you're stuck in. See, poverty starts long before the bank account runs dry. It starts when your mind becomes used to not having, used to waiting, used to making, used to settling. You learn to think small, not because you want to, but because life has trained you to. You walk into a store and you don't ask, do I need this? You ask, can I afford it? You get a little raise, and instead of breathing easier, your spending just expands to match. You don't plan. You react, you don't build. You patch, because you were never shown the other way. Not at home, not in school, not by the world around. You were taught how to stretch $1, but not how to make it grow legs and walk on its own. So what happens? You keep replaying the same patterns. You think money is the problem, when really, it's the thinking that handles money that keeps the problem alive. It's like this. Imagine someone hands you a seed, and they say, this will feed you for life. But no one taught you how to plant it. No one taught you that it needs water, that it takes time, that you can't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. So instead, you eat the seed, not because you're foolish, because you're hungry. Because no one showed you another way. That's how poverty works. It trains you to consume the very thing you were supposed to cultivate. Time, energy, ideas, even relationships. You spend everything now because you're not sure what tomorrow will bring. And in that uncertainty, you build no future. You just try to survive the present. But here's the hard part most people don't want to admit. The longer you live inside survival mode, the more normal it starts to feel. You don't even realize it anymore. You just know you're tired. You just know money slips through your fingers. You just know things don't change, no matter how hard you work. And you tell yourself things like, maybe this is just how life is. Maybe I wasn't meant to have more. Maybe I'm just not lucky. But none of that is true. What's true is that you were given a pattern and you followed it. What's also true is that you can break it, but not with willpower alone, not with hustle, or hype, or motivation videos. You break the pattern by slowing down, by watching how your thoughts form, by catching yourself in the moment when you say, I can't, and quietly asking, is that really true or just familiar? Poverty makes its home in familiarity, in what's comfortable. Even if what's comfortable is chaos. So the second truth is this. You were trained to think poor, not by one teacher, not by one parent, but by a system, a culture, a quiet rhythm that taught you to play small. And unless you pause long enough to see the rhythm, you'll keep dancing to its beat, even when you know it's taking you nowhere. And I'll tell you something I've learned with time. You can't escape a pattern you refuse to acknowledge. That's why these questions matter. That's why it's uncomfortable to hear this, because it's easier to blame your paycheck, easier to blame your boss, your childhood, the economy. And all of those things may be true, but deeper than those, there's a mindset that's been with you far longer, a way of thinking that says, I'll never get ahead. I'm not that kind of person. I'm just doing my best. And maybe you are, but what if your best was shaped by beliefs you never chose? What if your best was built inside a box that someone else drew for you? Wouldn't you want to redraw it? Wouldn't you want to step outside it and see what life looks like without the old rules? Because here's something you may not have heard before. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not incapable. You are conditioned. And conditioning can be undone. Not overnight. Not easily, but slowly. Deliberately. Like learning to walk again after years of crawling. So no. School never taught you this. They never told you that thinking poor becomes a habit. They never told you that money flows differently to the man who believes he's worthy of wealth. They never told you that you could unlearn struggle. But I'm telling you now, because someone has to, because if you don't hear it here, you might go another 10 years repeating a story that was never yours to begin with. You ever notice this? The man who grew up with nothing often feels guilty when he finally gets a little something. As if having more than enough is somehow wrong. As if security is suspicious. Like comfort is a betrayal of where he came from. That's no accident. That's the third truth no one taught you in school. Poverty teaches you to feel ashamed of prosperity, not just ashamed of having money. Ashamed of wanting it. Ashamed of dreaming too far, asking for too much, thinking too big. And so, even when money comes your way, a raise, a bonus, a chance, you quietly find ways to push it away. You downplay it, you squander it, you share it too fast, too freely, to avoid feeling selfish. You tell yourself, I don't need much, or I'm not like them. But deep down, you're afraid of what having money might mean. Because somewhere along the line, you were taught that money changes people. And that belief, that old warning, runs deep. So instead of changing your life, you shrink your dreams, you aim low, call it realistic, and wear humility like armor. But it's not humility. It's fear. It's guilt. It's the quiet belief that if you rise too far, you'll leave people behind, or worse, become someone they no longer understand. So you stay close to the ground. Not because you have to, but because it feels safer there. Let me tell you something, friend. Wanting more for your life does not make you greedy. Wanting peace, space, time, choice, it does not mean you've forgotten where you came from. It means you finally see where that road leads. And you don't want to walk it forever. But no one told you that, did they? Number one told you that the fear of money is just as dangerous as the lack of it. Because when you fear money, when you feel guilty for having it, you'll never hold on to it long. It'll slip through your fingers. Not because you're careless, but because your mind is still trying to stay good, stay humble, stay just like everyone else. And that brings us to something harder to hear. Many people stay poor, not because they failed, but because they're afraid to succeed, afraid of what people will think, afraid of standing out, afraid of losing the comfort of being part of the struggle, because there's a strange kind of safety in struggle, a quiet belonging in being one of us. You know what I mean. You hear it in phrases like, must be nice. Don't forget where you came from. Don't let money change you. They sound innocent, protective even. But under those words is a message. Don't grow too much. Don't outshine the rest of us. And that message keeps entire families, entire communities, stuck. Bound by invisible ropes. Ropes made of loyalty. Ropes made of guilt. So what do? You work hard, but you don't allow the reward. You dream big, but you sabotage the outcome. You want more, but you spend like you're still broke, because that's who everyone knows you as. And if you stop being broke, who will you become? Let me give you a quiet truth. Money doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you've always been. If you're generous, you'll be more generous. If you're thoughtful, You'll have more room to think. If you're grounded, money won't uproot you. It'll give you space to plant deeper. But if you don't believe that, if you believe wealth corrupts, if you believe money turns good people bad, you'll keep pushing it away without even knowing you're doing it. You'll call it bad luck. You'll call it bad timing. You'll say the door closed on you. But often, it was you who never turned the handle, and the worst part? You'll pass that fear down to your children, to your younger self, to the next version of you trying to grow. Because fear, like poverty, is contagious. So here's the question. What if wealth didn't pull you away from who you are, but brought you closer to the life you were always meant to live? What if it gave you time to heal? What if it gave you space to breathe? What if it gave you the ability to help others, not just with sympathy, but with resources? Because let me tell you something I've learned over many years. It's hard to help others. When your own house is on fire, you can love deeply. You can care endlessly. But if you're exhausted, if you're drowning in debt, if you're barely staying afloat, you're giving from a cracked cup. And sooner or later, there's nothing left to give. So no, money isn't evil, but fearing it, distrusting it, feeling ashamed of it, that's what keeps you stuck. And school? They never taught you how to have a healthy relationship with it. They taught you how to earn a wage, but not how to welcome wealth. They taught you how to count coins, but not how to create freedom. They gave you rules, formulas, uniforms, but no inner permission to become more. That permission? It's yours to give now, not from pride. Not from ego, but from a quiet knowing that says, I was not born to struggle forever. I was meant to grow. And that growth? It begins the moment you stop feeling guilty for wanting to rise. There's something else they never taught you in school, something quiet, but heavy. They never told you how deeply your environment shapes your expectations, where you grow up, who you listen to, what you see day after day. It all builds your sense of what's normal. And when poverty is the backdrop, you stop questioning it. You think it's just life. You think scraping by is how it's supposed to be. That money runs out. That debt is a given. That stress is part of adulthood. So you don't challenge it. You adapt. You learn to find pride in the struggle. You become strong, but not free. And here's the danger. When you grow up surrounded by struggle, success begins to look like betrayal, because no one around you has it. No one talks about building wealth. No one talks about ownership. No one says, you were born for more. They say, don't ask for too much. Be grateful you have a job. Life is hard for everyone. And after a while, that becomes the music in your mind, always playing in the background. Even when you want more, you hear the chorus telling you not to reach too far. So you stay close to what's familiar. You live among people who reflect your current self, not your future one. You stay in circles where growth is suspicious, and comfort is shared pain. Not because you're weak, not because you don't want more, but because you're human, and humans, we seek belonging before we seek change. And if the price of change is feeling alone, most people won't pay it. That's the fourth truth no one taught you. Sometimes, to escape poverty, you must first outgrow the people who normalize it. And that's not an easy thing to hear, because these are the people you love. Your friends, your family, the folks you've laughed with, struggled with, celebrated small wins with. But if every time you talk about growth, they look at you like you're crazy, If every time you mention saving or investing or building, they roll their eyes, then you're standing in a room where the ceiling is built out of their fears and you can't rise. Without bumping your head, so you stay small. You clip your own wings. You say things like, "I'll wait until they understand." But deep down, you know they won't, because they don't want to. Because if you grow, it might expose where they've stayed still, and that makes people uncomfortable. So they mock or tease or withdraw, not because they hate you, but because your growth becomes a mirror, and not everyone wants to see what's in it. So what do? You begin to shift the soil you grow in. Slowly, gently, not with judgment, but with discernment. You start listening to different voices. You start learning from people who've walked where you want to go. You start spending more time in quiet than in noise, more time in reflection than in reaction. And yes, it's lonely at first. Growth often is. It's like leaving the crowded, noisy room you've always known and stepping into a hallway of silence. But in that silence, something beautiful happens. You start to hear yourself again, not the voices of your past, not the doubts of others, not just you. You hear your real thoughts. You feel your real values. And maybe, for the first time, you realize you were meant for a life that doesn't revolve around lack. A life where money isn't just survival, it's a tool. Where time isn't just something you sell, it's something you own. But to reach it, you may have to let go of the comfort of old conversations, not in anger, not in pride, just with love and with clarity. Because not everyone will understand where you're going. Not everyone needs to. But you need to go. Because if you stay too long in an environment that makes poverty feel normal, you'll start to believe that freedom is a fantasy, and it's not. Freedom is real, but it requires a new language, a new rhythm, and sometimes new company. That doesn't mean cutting everyone off. It means choosing who gets to speak into your dreams, gets to shape your habits, who gets to walk beside you, and who you must quietly outgrow. School didn't teach you that. They didn't teach you that. Some lessons cost comfort. They didn't tell you that elevation might mean isolation, at least for a while. But if you can bear the weight of that season, you'll come out stronger, clearer, freer, because you'll have chosen growth over approval. And that is how poverty begins to lose its grip, not just from your wallet, but from your world. There's a quiet lie that sits at the center of poverty. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like patience. It sounds like something a good, humble person would say. And here it is. If I just keep working hard, eventually things will get better. Now, that belief isn't wrong on the surface. Hard work matters. But let me tell you something most people never hear. Hard work alone doesn't set you free. If it did, every tired man on a construction site, every woman pulling double shifts, every mother holding down 2 jobs while raising children, they'd be wealthy, but they're not. And that's the 5th truth no one taught you in school. They trained you to work, but never taught you how to think about wealth. Never taught you that money comes not just from effort, but from understanding where to place that effort. You see, the poor are taught to trade time for money. The rich are taught to trade value for money. Big difference. Because time is limited, but value can scale. And no one told you that. No one told you that staying busy is not the same as building wealth. So you grow up thinking that exhaustion is proof of virtue. That if you're not sweating, you haven't earned it. That rest is laziness. That wealth is suspicious. And over time, you develop a kind of pride in the grind. I'm working hard. You say, even when nothing is changing, even when your back hurts, even when your bank account still hovers near zero, you keep pushing, hoping that effort will carry you to freedom, but it won't, because freedom is built on leverage, not labor. And leverage doesn't come from school. It comes from awareness. Awareness of how money flows, how value is perceived, how systems work and who benefits from them. But you were never shown those things. You were shown how to clock in. How to follow orders, how to be a good employee, how to build someone else's dream. And now, years later, you find yourself stuck because your education never gave you a map. Just a routine. But here's the truth most people don't want to face. If your goal is freedom, you have to stop thinking like a worker and start thinking like a builder of assets, of systems, of skills that multiply without your body breaking. Because here's what poverty really steals. It steals time, and in the name of survival, you give away the one thing you can never get back. You sell your hours for just enough to make it through the week, and when the next week comes, you sell them again. You trade your presence for a paycheck, your energy for a number on a screen. You never get ahead. You just get more tired. Because the system was built to reward obedience, not ownership. Let me say that again, slowly. The system was built to reward obedience, not ownership. In school, it was part of that system. They never taught you how to own something, not land, not equity, not your own time. They taught you how to serve something. An employer, a company, a machine that runs on your labor and gives you just enough to stay, but not enough to leave. And so the pattern continues. You think the answer is more work, but it isn't. The answer is different work, smarter work, aligned work, work that doesn't just pay you once, but pays you while you sleep. You weren't taught that in school, but maybe it's time to teach it to yourself, because no one is coming to rescue you. No one's going to knock on your door and say, here's your freedom, you've earned it. It doesn't work like that. Freedom isn't earned by hours. It's claimed through awareness. Through choosing, day by day, to stop playing someone else's game. And that choice, it begins in the mind. It begins the moment you stop saying, I'll just work harder, and start asking, what can I build that will free me? Not in a year, not overnight, but over time. Quietly, patiently, deliberately. Because true wealth is quiet. It grows in silence, in discipline, in small, repeated choices that compound when no one's watching. So no school didn't teach you this, but life can. Experience can, reflection can, you can, because you're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not unlucky. You've just been following a map that leads nowhere, and now you're ready to draw your own. You know what's strange? We were taught how to pass tests, but never how to handle money when it finally comes. No one tells you that receiving money can be just as difficult as not having it, because when you've lived most of your life in lack, abundance feels unfamiliar. It feels uncomfortable. It feels undeserved. You get a little extra in your account, and instead of saving it, you spend it fast, without thinking, not because you're reckless, but because on some deep level, you don't know how to feel safe holding it. That's the unspoken trauma of poverty. They never talked about that in school. They never told you how growing up in survival rewires your nervous system, how your body starts believing that stress is normal, that anxiety is just part of life, that money never stays, so why get attached? So when the money does come, you subconsciously prepare for it to leave. You overspend. You give too much. You self-sabotage. Not because you want to fail, but because success feels too unfamiliar to trust. That's the sixth truth they didn't teach you. Poverty doesn't just live in your wallet. It lives in your nervous system. It teaches you to react, not to plan, to scramble, not to pause, to grab what's in front of you, because who knows if tomorrow will bring more. You live on edge, even when there's no danger present. You live rushed, even when you don't need to hurry, because the wound is still there. The wound of being told, we can't afford that. The wound of watching your parents argue about bills. The wound of pretending you were okay at school when you knew you weren't. And those wounds? They don't disappear when your income increases. They show up in how you make decisions, how you handle pressure, how you see yourself, not just as someone trying to get ahead, but as someone afraid they don't belong ahead. So money comes, and you spend it faster than you planned. You feel guiltier than you expected. You shrink, even as life is asking you to expand. That's not laziness. That's not irresponsibility. That's unprocessed fear. Fear that if you rise too high, you'll lose people. You'll fail publicly. You'll prove that you weren't ready. But let me offer you a different lens. The goal isn't just to earn more. It's to feel safe earning more. To build a nervous system that isn't addicted to chaos. That doesn't only come alive when there's an emergency. That doesn't need scarcity to feel motivated. Because for many people, poverty becomes an identity. A place they return to, even when they've outgrown it. Because it's what feels familiar. It's like someone who's lived in a dark room for years. You open the window, and the light hurts their eyes. They close it, not because they don't want the light, but because they haven't adjusted to brightness. And that's you. That's many of us. We weren't raised in wealth. We were raised in tension, in tightness, in a constant state of just enough. So when more shows up, you don't celebrate it. You mistrust it. But here's what you were never told. You can heal that. You can learn to feel safe in abundance. You can build the capacity to hold success without fear, without guilt, without shrinking to fit old expectations. But you have to notice the patterns first. You have to ask yourself, why do I feel restless when I'm finally okay? Why do I downplay my wins? Why do I spend when I said I wouldn't? You start there, with honesty, not blame, not shame. Just quiet awareness. Because awareness creates space. And in that space, you get to make new choices. Maybe this time you pause before you spend. Maybe this time you let the money sit. Not forever. Just long enough to show your nervous system that nothing bad happens when you hold on to peace. Over time, you begin to trust it. You begin to live from calm, not just urgency. And slowly, poverty stops feeling like home. Not just in your bank account, but in your body. That's real freedom. Not just more income. More peace. More ability to breathe without waiting for something to go wrong. But school didn't teach you that. They didn't teach you that the biggest battle wouldn't be against numbers. It would be against the part of you that's still bracing for disaster, even when life is finally okay. That's why money is emotional. That's why change is hard. That's why no budget in the world will work if your nervous system still thinks chaos is safer than calm. So if you've ever wondered why you keep ending up back at zero, why you sabotage good seasons, why you can't seem to hold what you worked so hard to earn, maybe it's not about how much you know. Maybe it's about how deeply you're still carrying the imprint of struggle. And maybe now you're finally ready to let it go. Not overnight, but gently. like peeling back a layer you never knew was there. Let's pause for a moment. Look at how far you've already come. You've started to notice the patterns, the spending, the guilt, the tension that lives in your body when money arrives. And that alone, that awareness, is something most people never reach in their entire lives. But now comes the question no one really asks. Are you willing to become someone you've never been before, in order to live a life you've never had? Because poverty, when it's all you've known, shapes your personality, that it shapes your identity. You become the person who always says, I can't afford that. I don't need much. I'm just getting by. Not because those things are true forever, but because they feel safe to believe. They don't challenge the world you were raised in. But here's the truth. They never taught in school. Your identity will try to protect your past, even if it costs you your future. If you grew up feeling poor, you might still carry that story, even if your paycheck says otherwise. You'll keep playing small. You'll stay quiet when opportunity knocks. You'll turn down chances to grow because deep down, you don't see yourself as someone who belongs at the table. Not yet. Not until you rewrite the story. Because here's the seventh truth. The hardest part about escaping poverty isn't money. It's the identity you have to let go of. You see, money doesn't just change your bank account. It challenges your self-image. It asks you to think differently, to act differently, to believe in your worth, even when no one clapped for you. Yet, and let's be honest, that's terrifying, because who will you be if you're no longer the struggler? No longer the one who always figures it out last minute? No longer the survivor? Will people still relate to you? Will they still like you? Will they say you've changed? Yes, and maybe that's okay. Because you should change. You should become the version of yourself who doesn't flinch when bills come in, who doesn't apologize for wanting more, who no longer tolerates chaos as a normal way of life. But again, school never taught us that success would be an emotional process. They made it sound like a ladder. Step 1, get good grades. Step 2, get a degree. Step 3, get a job. Step 4, save and retire. They never told us about the invisible step in between. The identity shift, the moment when you stop seeing yourself as the poor kid and start seeing yourself as someone capable of building wealth, not just earning it, but holding it, growing it, enjoying it. That takes inner work, and truthfully, it's uncomfortable, because it forces you to walk away from old environments, from people who still think small, from beliefs that once kept you safe, but now keep you stuck. And that's where most people hesitate, not because they don't want more, but because more feels lonely at first. Growth always does. When you start breaking out of the poverty identity, you might notice your circle shrinking. You'll hear things like, must be nice to have money now. You think you're better than us? You've changed. And they're right. You have changed. You've started choosing peace over panic, planning over guessing, building over blaming, and that change threatens the comfort of people who are still married to their struggle. But don't let their fear stop your progress, because here's a gentle truth. You can't bring everyone with you, but you can inspire them by going first. You don't need to argue. You don't need to convince. Just live the example. Let your growth speak louder than your explanations. Let your financial peace become the quiet evidence that freedom is possible, even for those who started with nothing. And that brings us to one more lesson they never taught you. The real reward isn't just money. It's who you become in the process of earning it with integrity, It's the version of you that learns to say no to what no longer fits. The version that finally believes, I am worthy of more, and I don't have to suffer for it. That's real wealth, not just more income, but more agency, more clarity, more calm. It's no longer needing to prove yourself, no longer explaining why you want to grow. Just growing, steadily, quietly, relentlessly, even if no one claps, even if no one gets it, because you get it now. You're not just chasing money anymore. You're healing the patterns that kept it away. You're not just reading books. You're applying the truth. You're not just surviving. You're becoming someone who no longer feels at home in chaos, because peace finally feels normal. That's the shift they couldn't teach in school. Because it isn't academic. It's spiritual, emotional, deeply personal. And it begins the moment you say, I don't have to stay poor just because I was raised poor. I get to write a new story. You're already doing it. Keep going. Let me ask you something most people avoid. What does your future self want to thank you for? Is it for working harder than anyone else? Maybe, but that's not the full story. Is it for sacrificing rest, relationships, and dreams in the name of responsibility? Unlikely. Your future self, the version of you who's no longer fighting poverty every single month, probably wants to thank you for something deeper, something quieter. They want to thank you for becoming someone who finally made peace with money. Someone who saw through the noise, who stopped running and started building. Because let's be honest, most people run from poverty into a different version of poverty. They chase income, but never heal spending habits. They chase promotions, but stay financially stressed. They chase opportunities, but never feel secure. Because poverty isn't always about money. Sometimes it's about the way we think. And school never taught us that. They never explained that someone can earn 6 figures and still live in a panic. They never warned us that poverty thinking can follow you no matter your title, your degrees, or your zip code. Which brings us to the final truth, the one they should have shouted from the rooftops. Escaping poverty is not a finish line. It's a mindset you must choose. Again and again, every day. You have to wake up and choose discipline. Choose clarity. Choose the long game, even when the short game looks easier. That's the truth that most never face. Because it's easier to blame the system, easier to blame your job, easier to say, it's just the way things are. But there's something incredibly powerful about the moment you stop blaming and start owning. Not owning the shame, you don't need to carry that anymore, but owning the response. Owning the decision to build a life that makes wealth not just possible, but normal. A life where you no longer sabotage yourself when things get good. A life where you can finally say, I don't need to wait for permission anymore. I can create something better, right here, right now. Let me tell you this plainly, you are not broken. You were simply taught broken ideas about money. Ideas like, just work harder. Rich people are selfish. Debt is normal. Money will come if I'm a good person. None of those are truths. They are stories handed down, repeated in your home, shaped by survival, and quietly embedded in your nervous system. But stories can be rewritten, and the moment you realize that, you no longer feel powerless. You realize you're not behind. You're just beginning, for real. This time, you start setting different priorities. You stop asking, how much can I afford this month? And instead ask, how can I structure my life so I never have to ask that again? You stop saying, I hope money comes soon, and instead say, I'm becoming the person who attracts, builds, and respects wealth. That shift, subtle as it may seem, changes everything. Because the truth is, poverty doesn't just withhold money. It withholds options. It withholds rest. It withholds your true self. And wealth, real wealth, isn't just about dollars. It's about dignity. It's about choosing where to live, what to eat, how to spend your time, not out of desperation, but out of alignment with the life you've designed. And that is possible for you. Yes, you. Even if you've struggled your whole life, even if you made mistakes, even if no one in your family believes it, your transformation doesn't require their permission, and it doesn't require perfection. It only requires one thing: the quiet decision to stop living by old rules and to begin practicing new ones. Rules like, wealth is a habit, not a miracle. I am not my past. Money is not a measure of my worth, but a tool I must learn to master. I am allowed to think bigger, live fuller, and enjoy life without guilt. Peace is my new baseline, not stress. And here's the best part. You don't have to wait 10 years to feel wealthy. You can begin practicing wealth right now. You can be generous, even with $10. You can save, even if it's just $1 today. You can say no to chaos. You can create boundaries. You can rest without shame. You can speak about your goals out loud, without apology. Because when you do that, something shifts in your spirit. You begin to embody wealth, and that energy attracts better choices, better people, and better results. Not by magic, but by alignment. This is how people truly escape poverty. Not by waiting, but by becoming a person who values the long game, who replaces excuses with education, who replaces guilt with grace, who replaces silence with strategy. And I'll leave you with this. You don't escape poverty once. You escape it every day, by who you choose to be. So ask yourself, who am I becoming? What would the wealthy, healed, future version of me do today? Then go do that, not out of fear, but out of love for the life you're building, out of love for the people you'll help, out of love for the kid inside. You who just wanted to be safe and seen. You're not just learning about money now, you're finally learning about you, and that changes everything.